স্যার আপনি কি আর চিরাং যাবেন এই উইক?
আমি এই শুক্রবার যাব, বৃহস্পতিবার পর্যন্ত ক্লাস নেব, শুক্রবার থেকে অ্যাবসেন্ট দেওয়া শুরু করবো, দেন চিরাং থেকে ফিরে তোমাদেরকে আবার জানাবো। আচ্ছা, আমাদের এখানে মনে হয় সবগুলো আলাপ করা হয় না। হাউ ফার ডিড উই গো থ্রু? উই ডিড ডিসকাস দিস প্রবলেম, রাইট?
স্যার আজকে পেপার 2 এর পেজ 11 এর পর থেকে ডিসকাস করার কথা ছিল।
পেপার 2?
পেপার 2।
ওকে, I'll get that.
ওয়ানও ডিসকাস করার কথা ছিল, মানে আমাদেরকে বলছিলেন যে পেপার 1 শেষ করতে আর এই 11 কোশ্চেন নাম্বার 11 থেকে করতে।
একটা বলো।
স্যার পেপার 1টা যখন ধরছি শেষই করে ফেলবো।
না, যেটা হোমওয়ার্ক বলছিলাম সেটাই করাবো, সিম্পল।
স্যার ওইটাই বলছিলেন পেপার 1টা শেষ করে
You would be able to get rid of your random error. This is the one. All right, so we started the F/4m.
the earth is always
যাতে করে at least তোমরা পুরোটুকু করো। আমি randomly বলে দিতে পারি যে পুরো অংশ করে ফেলবা, but that might be a bit, and then we'll what can I say? I remember. So paper 1 শেষ করার পর আমি তোমাদের সময় পেলে তারপর পেপার 2 করতে বলছিলাম, because there was a large gap in between the last class and the Tuesday class. So this is the last problem that we did discuss. Do you have any problem from here up to 5? If not, tell me problems from page number 3. Anyone? Any problem from page number 3 that you did try and couldn't solve? এখানে অ্যাকচুয়ালি ডিসকাস করার মতো প্রবলেম আসলে নাই। আচ্ছা, কোশ্চেন নাম্বার 12টা আমি একটু আলাপ করি। কোশ্চেন নাম্বার 12টা একটু দেখো। কোশ্চেন নাম্বার 12টাতে কিছু ইম্পর্টেন্ট স্টাফস আছে। Have a look at question number 12. A car of mass 750 kg has a horizontal driving force of 2.0 kN acting on it. It has a forward horizontal acceleration of 2 meters per second square. What is the resistive force acting horizontally? Now, the key formula by which we should solve this can look something like this.
summation of force is equal to ma.
Exactly. So it should be resultant force goes to ma. Resultant force is the forward force, which can be written as a driving force, minus the resistive force, so let's say Fr. This should be goes to ma. Now you place all the values and you find out the value of this is your question mark. So that's the equation. Don't directly use F equals to ma, because the acceleration always happens due to the resultant force, which is the vector sum of the two available forces. Acha, how can we solve number 13? Did I discuss with you with you people the idea of the upthrust yet?
স্যার একবার রিমাইন্ড করে দেন, ভুলে গেছি।
না, তোমাদের ব্যাচের সাথে ডিসকাস করা হয়েছিল কিনা আপট্রাস্ট আইডিয়াটা? ডিটেইলস আলাপ করছিলাম কিনা?
ডিটেইলস অলসো
জাস্ট বলে দিছিলাম কি কি ছিল, বাট ডিটেইলস আলাপ করেন।
আচ্ছা, সমস্যা নাই। Then I'm going to keep this question pending. What I give you as a homework, যেটা করবা সেটা হচ্ছে তোমরা আমার চ্যানেলে যাবা, চ্যানেলে গিয়া ক্লাস 9 এর প্লেলিস্টে ঢুকবা। ক্লাস 9 এর প্লেলিস্টে দেখবে এখানে কোন এই যে এই লেকচারে দেখো আপট্রাস্ট লেখা আছে, এখানে যাবা।
Class at 705
আপট্রাস্টের কনসেপ্ট আমরা ডিসকাস করব
flawlessly, whereas in the case of at this surface
এখানে so
as a result, as the person goes forward, that person is basically
I did some really extensive
Yes, sir.
beautiful.
We are class 9 kids with a lot of different information and some mark over
Then the points.
so
rise and float, that is gonna be another different question.
দেখবা, দেখে যদি না বুঝো
That will be defined by the tug of war that Mark Rober used in his exam.
So এটা আমি আপাতত পেন্ডিং রাখতেছি। I'm gonna definitely discuss this question in the next class. So I want you to see the explanation that I made with the class 9 kids. Otherwise I can simply try and achieve the same discussion with you or simply play that video in your class duration, which is not essentially fruitful. So I'm putting this as a homework. Find this out and clear your ideas. Moving forward, page number 4 কোনো problem? আচ্ছা, আমি এই টাইপের কোশ্চেনগুলো একটু তোমাদের সাথে হেল্প করি। সেটা হচ্ছে, if in any MCQ you see the idea of constant velocity, constant speed, uniform velocity, uniform speed, if you ever see that, try to significantly highlight to that word. In most cases, these words are gonna be the marking point or the direction for you to solve that question. For example, if you have a look over here, so number 16, an object made from two equal masses joined by a light rod falls with uniform speed through air. Now, what would uniform speed mean? Zero acceleration. The rod remains horizontal. Which statement about the equilibrium of the systems is correct? So the rod is remaining horizontal, so it means it's not spinning, and it is falling at a constant speed, which means upward forces equals to downward forces. It is moving, but there is no acceleration because there is uniform speed. So the answer would be, have a look. It is not in equilibrium because it is falling at steadily. It is not in equilibrium because it is in motion. It is not in equilibrium because there is a resultant torque. It is in equilibrium because there is no resultant force and no resultant torque. This is the correct response. The significance of putting this MCQ in a CA paper is to check the student's concept, that can the student refer to the cases or logically process the case where, so that so the logic, whether you can logically process the information that it is possible for an object to be in equilibrium even though it is moving. This is something that I discussed with you in one of the earlier classes, that a moving object can have equilibrium of forces as long as it doesn't have any unbalanced force and it doesn't have any unbalanced moment. So a moving, rotating object can have balance, can have equilibrium of force. Can be at equilibrium altogether. So this is the correct response. আমি ডিসকাস করে যাচ্ছি, তোমাদের কারো কোনো কোশ্চেন থাকলে রেসপন্ড করো, অথবা হচ্ছে হাত উঠাও অথবা চ্যাট উইন্ডোতে লিখো। সো আই এম গোনা গো ইন মাই পেস। হাউ অ্যাবাউট নাম্বার 13?
What, sir?
13. Sorry, 13. No, sorry, 19. My bad. Number 19. This one. How about number 19? এটা answer কি হবে?
A.
Yes. How do you know that?
Because the resulting force of 4 Newton, 3 Newton and 4 Newton is 5 Newton. So if 5 Newton acts opposite the resultant force, then the 5 Newton acts opposite to the resultant force of 3 Newton and 4 Newton, then the total resultant force will be 0.
That's perfectly logical, but what you essentially implied in your discussion. Okay, everyone, please listen and keep up. What? I'm the number legacy. Dashfia, na. Ifat. What Ifat just said is that the resultant of 3 force and the 3 Newton and the 4 Newton force should be 5. Now, is it obvious that the resultant of 3 and 4 Newton force should be 5? Can it be anything else than 5?
Yes, sir. It can, but it says minimum resultant force. So, yeah.
So that's the point that I'm trying to highlight, kids. There are multiple different ways to solve this problem, but I'm going to talk to you about one problem. The first thing that you need to understand that whenever you have, so listen to my words pretty clearly. I'm going to go for the drawing after a while, but যেটা বলতেছি সেটা একটু ভালো করে খেয়াল করো. Whenever multiple forces work on an object, one of the easier way to find out the possible range of the resultant of 2 of these forces. So if you wonder what am I saying, what I'm saying is that let's say an object is subjected to 2 forces. One is 3 Newton and another one is 4 Newton. What is the possible maximum resultant that you can get out of these 2 forces? Only these 2 forces. That would be 7 Newton, not 6. That would be 7 Newton, and the 7 Newton is possible when both the 3 Newton and 4 Newton work in the exact same alignment in the same direction. That way, you're simply gonna add those 2 numbers up because they are working in the same direction. So you just add these up. So the maximum resultant out of 3 and 4 can be 7. What is the possible minimum resultant out of a 3 Newton and 4 Newton force?
1 Newton.
1 Newton in the direction of which force?
4 Newton.
4 Newton.
That should be in the direction of 4 Newton, which means if you try to think about it, that depending upon the angle of the 3 Newton and 4 Newton force, it is possible that the resultant of 3 Newton and 4 Newton can have a minimum value of 1 Newton, can have a maximum value of 7 Newton, inclusive the boundary values. It means it can be 1 Newton. It doesn't have to be smaller than or bigger than 1 Newton. This means if the third force working on the object is within this range, then these two forces can logically cancel each other out. So if your third force, which is working on the object, has a value that is within the range of 2 to 7, if the third force is in between these two numbers, you can cancel out the resultant of 3 and 4, whatever that value is, with the application of the third force being applied in the opposite direction. So that way the three forces can make a total resultant force 0. That is one mathematical way to check this, for which you do not have to have any diagram. But if I go for a bit of a vector diagram over here, I can make this a bit more clearer to you, I believe. One of the things that we have learned in our polygon rule is that if multiple forces are working on an object, get this, if multiple forces are working on an object placed one after another, ultimately gives us a closed polygon, then the resultant of those forces would be 0. Do you remember that?
Yes, sir.
But the forces have to be placed in the appropriate direction. They have to be drawn with proper scale. So the length and the force should be represented with appropriate ratio. So try to think about it. The three forces that we are dealing with this question are how many? The three forces that we are working over here, one of them is 3 Newton, one is 4 Newton, and one is 5 Newton. So just judging from these three forces, irrespective of the direction, try to think about it. Can you produce a closed triangle with these three forces?
Yes.
How do you judge that? What is the geometric logic behind it? I mean,
Sum of other two forces is greater than the third force.
sum of any of the two forces is bigger than the third force, or to be more exact, or to be more sure, we can say some of the smaller forces should be bigger than the
Largest force.
largest force. Now that is the logic by which we can make a triangle. So এই জিনিসটা খেয়াল করি যে using these three different values, because you can see that the smaller two values of the triangle side are going to be represented by 3 and 4, and the other side is 5. So I can very well say that 3 plus 4 is bigger than 5, which means it is possible for us to make a closed triangle using these three forces lengths, irrespective of the direction. The direction could be anything, but it is possible for us to get a triangle with these three values. Well, because these three happen to be Newton's Pythagoras triplet, well, that triangle should be a right angle triangle, because I know that 3 square plus 4 square equals to 5 square. So I can essentially have a right angle triangle like this, 3, 4, 5. That's possible, but it doesn't have to be like that. For example, if I give you another set of values, say if these values were 2 Newton, 4 Newton, and 5 Newton, what would be our decision for this thing? I mean, let's say this question was 2, 4, and 5. Then what would be the minimum possible resultant out of these forces? Minimum possible resultant means the possible minimum could be at lowest 0. Now, zero resultant force can be possible if the three forces can produce a closed triangle. Can you make a closed triangle using these three forces or using these three lengths?
Yes.
The answer is a yes, because 2 plus 4 can be bigger than 5. Acha, how about this? বুঝাচ্ছে কিনা দেখো বলো বানো কোশ্চেন থাকলে কোশ্চেন করো আমাকে. How about if you go for another value, let's say if we go another three values, let's say if I give you this number, let's say 1 Newton, 4 Newton, and 5 Newton. What would be the minimum resultant of these three forces?
Greater than 0.
Think about it. What would be the minimum resultant of these three forces?
0.
0.
The answer is 0, but can you tell me why?
I mean, if 5 Newton acts opposite to the 1 plus 4 Newton, like 4 Newton.
Exactly. So it is possible that 1 Newton and 4 Newton can work exactly in the same direction, and the 5 Newton can work in the exact opposite direction. In that case, you're not going to essentially come up with a triangle. You're not going to get a triangle, but you're going to get a zero thickness triangle. So what do I mean by a zero thickness triangle? I mean something like this. So let's say if I draw these three forces in the appropriate in direction, you have to understand one thing. We are not bound by their direction value, by the direction of this force over here. So we can essentially try to draw these forces in any direction. What we are trying to find out is that given any direction that we can, is it going to be possible to make this total resultant 0 or not? That's what we're trying to find out. So if we have this kind of forces, it can very well look like this. Let's say 1 Newton is going to be this way, and then the 4 Newton is going to be this much. And if the 5 Newton is drawn exiting the opposite direction, the 5 Newton can be eventually on the all the way back, and you're going to have these two ends perfectly meeting onto each other. So you're not essentially getting a close triangle, but you can very well make a perfectly same. You can reach up to the same point. So these three values can also make a resultant force 0. But what if the case was like this? Let's say if you have 1 Newton, 4 Newton, and 6 Newton. What is the minimum resultant of these three forces?
Sir, minimum 2 হইতে হবে 1.
Think. Everyone, please speculate. Use your brain, and I'll definitely help you with the solution, but I want you to try first. What would be the minimum resultant out of these three forces?
Sir, same plane হতে হবে
The forces have to be same plane, but they don't have to be in the same alignment. They doesn't have to be in the same alignment, but they have to be coplanar. Try to imagine the shape of the triangle in your head, which is going to give you a good heads up for how to work with this. If you have three forces, 1 Newton, 4 Newton, and 6 Newton, so try to imagine making up, try to start making up the triangle. For example, let's say you draw 1 Newton, then you draw 4 Newton in any direction from the 1 Newton, and then you need to draw another 6 Newton. Can you have that end point of the 6 Newton force perfectly merging on the 1 Newton force's starting point? Is it going to be possible?
No.
Why not?
Sir, endpoint would be parallel. Proper triangle as 1 plus 4 is less than 6.
Exactly. Which means that even if we have the two smallest forces working in the exact same direction, so that is 4 plus 1, that would still not be equal to 6 Newton, which means the minimum resultant you can have is gonna be 1 Newton, which is possible for us to achieve when both the 1 Newton force and the 4 Newton force work in the exact same direction, but the 6 Newton works in the exact opposite. So if I just try to show you this figure for the possible minimum case, let's say I'm gonna use a different color. Let's say the 1 Newton is gonna be black. So let's say this much is 1 Newton. And then let's say I'm gonna show the 4 Newton by red. So this is a 4 Newton. Now, if from this point, if you try to draw it backwards for a 6 Newton, that force should exist from here all the way up over here. But now if I complete this is going to be covered up because this is just a single straight line. So I can draw another straight line up to here, which is going to be definitely bigger than the 1 Newton because the 1 Newton is actually falling behind. So just to make sense with you, I shouldn't finish it over here. I should actually draw it in the backward direction to find out the exact minimum force. But just to be able to for the point to be visible, I do it with a bit of an angle. So this is approximately 0. Consider this they're all in the same line. So you're gonna have this much resultant remaining. How much is that force? That would be 1 Newton because 5 Newton working to the right, 4 plus 1, and 6 Newton can work in the backward direction. So the minimum resultant can be 6. For those of you who are trying to understand that why is this has to be minimum resultant? Because you can only get minimum resultant when the forces try to cancel out each other. So the smaller forces would try to work in opposite direction of the compared to the bigger force. When would we consider these linear scenarios? When this logic will not be available to us, that the sum of the two forces is bigger than the third biggest force. If that does not apply, then you have to go for these judgments. এই পর্যন্ত বুঝা গেছে?
লাস্টের লাইনটা আরেকবার বলবেন?
We have to go for this linear appropriation, or we have to consider the forces to be aligned linearly in the same direction in the exact opposite direction when this law would not be available to us. This law means that if we cannot apply the logic that the sum of the two smaller forces is bigger than the biggest. If you have this logic fulfilled, then you are definitely sure that it will be a closed triangle and the resultant would be 0. That's done deal. But if that's not the case, for example, if the case is like this, 1, 4, and 5, sum of the two smaller forces is equal to the third bigger force. So you can, in this case, you can have 0 Newton resultant force possible. For this case, 1 plus 4 gives you 5, which is even smaller than the 6 Newton. So you are gonna have, for this kind of a figure, how much resultant force? 1 Newton should be remaining. So if the logic of that, if the logic is that the sum of the two small forces is equal or less than the biggest force, then we have to consider the aligned scenario. You have to consider all the forces placed in the same straight line, where the smallest forces work in the same direction to get a possible biggest resultant out of them, and the biggest force should be placed in the opposite direction so that we can find out their resultant. So this is the idea that I'm trying to cover. One of the questions that I should try to ask you: what is the biggest resultant out of these three forces? What is the biggest resultant out of these three forces?
12 Newton.
12 Newton.
It is 12 Newton. Can everybody understand why?
Yes, all that force act in the same direction.
Exactly, because if all the forces work in the exact same direction, you can only add those things up. In that case, you are not going to have any reduction. For those of you who are still having a bit of a confusion that why we should add them, let me show you with a bit of a drawing. So what I mean is this. Have a look. If I just go ahead to make sense with this thing, let's say I'm gonna start my 3 Newton force from here to here. So let's say I'm gonna, so I should actually zoom out and use the space. So let's say I'm gonna show my 3 Newton force in this direction. From this place, I can try to draw a 4 Newton circle. Let's say that circle, the reason I'm showing you a circle is because I'm trying to give you an idea that, damn it. I should show this circle with a bit thinner line, even thinner line. Okay, let's say this is the, I have drawn a circle over here. So I should give an arrow over here. Let's say this much is 3 Newton. Let's assume this is 3 Newton. And over here, I have drawn a circle that has a radius of 4 Newton equivalent length, which means this 4 Newton could be working in any radial direction outward. Do I make sense?
Yes.
You can do this. But in which case, the resultant of these two forces, for example, if the 4 Newton works in this way, your resultant is gonna be like this. If the 4 Newton works in this way, your resultant is gonna be like this. These are all triangle rules. If the 4 Newton works along this element, then your resultant force is gonna be like this. You can see that slowly the resultant is becoming bigger, bigger, and bigger. For which element of the 4 Newton force, you're gonna have the biggest resultant? That would be exactly this one. Whenever the 4 Newton is gonna work in the exact same alignment, you're gonna get 3 plus 4 equals to 7. If the 4 Newton works even over here, then the resultant is gonna be this much. Now you have to understand that by the basic idea of triangle, circle construction, this line is definitely longer than this line, because this is producing a what? Obtuse triangle, where this is the obtuse angle, where this is just a straight line. So if you apply the idea of cosine rule, do you guys know what a cosine rule is?
Yes,
So if you apply the idea of cosine rule, over here you're gonna have some angle value. But if you go apply for this straight line, assuming that it is actually a triangle, which is not, then it would be 180 degrees. So 180 degree cosine rule means cos 180 means 1. So this will give you the longest length. So you can only have the longest force, longest resultant made out of two forces when they work in the exact same straight line. So if you want to get the total maximum force out of these three forces, 3, 4, and 5, you simply have to add all of these numbers, assuming that all the forces are working on the object in the exact same direction. So you're going to add all of these up. So there's not going to be any vector geometry, simple addition. That is your maximum possible maximum resultant. এই পর্যন্ত বুঝা গেছে কি?
Yes, sir.
Anyone, any question? Question থাকলে বলো, I will move on. I think I should move on. Okay. Okay. Okay, this is actually a dumb question. Number 21. Which one do you think is the correct response?
Sir, B.
Why?
স্যার এর আগের অ্যানসারটা কি ছিল যেটা বলতে 19 এর
19 এর কারেক্ট রেসপন্স ছিল হচ্ছে 0 because কোশ্চেনটা ছিল হচ্ছে what is the minimum resultant possible out of those three forces working on an object, so
হ্যাঁ
so that would be 0. বুঝছো?
জি স্যার
আচ্ছা, সো এটা আনসার কি হবে?
স্যার বি
কেন বি হবে?
বিকজ স্যার ফোর্স আর এক্সেলারেশন দুটো একই ডাইরেকশন যদি থাকে তাহলে তো লাইক মানে এক্সপ্রেস করতে পারছি না। আই হোপ ইউ আন্ডারস্টুড।
Okay, B is the correct response. B is the correct response. I'm just going to show you one simple equational approach to make you convinced of that fact. So let me just show you what I mean. তোমরা এই ইকুয়েশনটা চিনো সবাই? বলবান
জি স্যার।
এখানে ভেক্টর কোয়ান্টিটি কোনটা কোনটা?
সানডে
Force is a vector,
Force and acceleration.
mass at a scalar quantity, which means this is only a number. So what I can say that if the mass value is, let's say, 3, this would mean that the numerical value of force would be 3 times as much as the acceleration. So if you multiply the magnitude of acceleration with 3, you're gonna get the magnitude of force. That's the significance that this mass brings about. But this one is a vector quantity with the direction information. This one is the only other vector quantity on the other side with one direction information. Because this is an equation, this would essentially mean the direction of force and the direction of acceleration has to be same. Because there's no reason you should have a varied direction over here. Now, in which case can we have a different direction? Let me show you another formula. Do you guys know this formula?
Yes.
এখানে ভেক্টর কি কি?
VU and A.
So one of the ways I can write this AT, have a look, if you think about it, acceleration is given by what? Delta V by T, right? That's the basic expression for acceleration. So this should be vector, this should be a logically vector. So delta V should be equals to acceleration into time. So I can essentially write this as, sorry, time over vector হবে না, সেটা কেটে দিছি. So I could replace this as VU plus delta V, which basically makes sense that final velocity goes to initial velocity plus change of velocity. It works. But if you try to represent this one, this thing as a vector diagram, then you can visually see that this would be the resultant of a vector diagram, and these two are going to be a component. So the vector sum of these two things will together produce a resultant, which would be this one. It's just a all right. So if you consider the situation over here, these are the two different components that we have that we're going to work out, U plus AT, and V is the resultant velocity. So U happens to be the initial velocity. So have a look. We can pretty much make a vector triangle over, apply the triangle rule over here. So let's say for any case, if the U is represented by a horizontal vector, I'm just choosing a horizontal line because I can. It doesn't have to be horizontal. I could show this as green. Let's say this vector is U. This is U working this way. And let's say the acceleration to time could be in any direction from here. I mean, in which direction the acceleration is working is not dependent upon the initial direction of U. It can work in any direction. So for example, I can represent the AT that exists over here. That's very much possible. It could be straight, it could be backwards, it could be anywhere in this direction. So let's say I in scale, this is the amount of A into T. Now, if I try to complete a triangle over here, let's say I'm going to complete the triangle from here to here. That is gonna be basically my V. বুঝা যাচ্ছে কি? So this is a very basic representation of vector triangle rule. Everyone, please have a look. Can you logically understand how this diagram can logically mean to this equation? Compare them. If you have any confusion, tell me. এই ব্যাপারটা বুঝা যাচ্ছে কিনা?
জি স্যার
Yes, sir.
বুঝেছি।
So if you do understand this part, then this would be very simple for you to understand that, I mean, these two variables that we are working with over here, the individual directions of V, U, and A, they are practically unrelated to each other. The direction of v, u, and t can be altogether in 3 different directions, which is shown in our triangle over here. So this is a possible case. So it's never going to be true that v has to be in the same direction as u, or a has to be in the same direction as v, or any such those things. So the bottom line, or I mean, the solving of this MCQ is actually pretty simple. But what I want you to understand the concept is that whenever you're trying to figure out whether two vectors are going to have the same direction or not, you need to logically think about the mathematical formula by which these two variables are related to each other. If they're related to each other in a direct multiplication format like this one, then we can say they are going to have the exact same direction. But if we have some sort of a plus sign over here, then they will never have the same direction. Another thing that I can show you is this one. Have a look at this equation. S equals to ut plus half a t square. Do you know this formula?
Sir.
এই ইকুয়েশনের মধ্যে আমাদের ভেক্টর কোয়ান্টিটি কোনটা কোনটা? Which of this quantity, which variables are vector quantities over here?
S, U, A.
S, U, and A. So this would mean that because there is a plus sign over here, the result vector sum of ut plus half a t square. If you draw these two quantities in a vector triangle, one after another, then the resultant should be S. Or in other words, I can say that if I take this exact figure, if I take this exact figure, let's say I'm going to copy this because I don't want to draw another one. Let's say I'm going to get rid of the original symbols. So if I want to use this exact symbol, kids, you might wonder, where did this element come from? Well, this element could come from anywhere. This element could be anything. But what I'm trying to mean over here is that the vector sum of this plus this should give you this, which means these are the two vector parts which have to be placed one after another. So you can write it like this, that ut, the product of ut, plus half at square, which is this one. If you do the sum of these two things, vector sum of those two things, you're going to end up with S. Which means also, because there is a plus sign over here, the individual directions of u, a, or s never have to be in the same direction. You can only say two vectors will be in the same direction if they are exclusively expressed in a format like this, where there is nothing added on any of the sides. Do I make sense so far?
Yes, sir.
বুঝা যাচ্ছে কি এই জিনিসটা?
Yes, sir.
Can anyone else give me a similar example like this equation where two other vector quantities are going to be related by equation multiplication or division equation like this, and you can say they have to have the same direction? Can you tell me one other equation other than this?
Work done equals force in a distance.
But work is a scalar quantity. How does that
Oh,
work?
sorry.
Weight equals to mg.
Velocity is equal to displacement by time.
V square is equal to u square plus 2af.
Hold up. একজন বলছে হচ্ছে weight equals to mass into gravity. Well, that's basically another expression of this one, so I'm discarding that because that's just this equation in another form. আরেকজন বলছে হচ্ছে velocity equals to displacement over time. This is absolutely correct. Have a look. এই equation velocity vector quantity, displacement vector quantity. T হচ্ছে কি? The division line. This equation essentially means that v is t times smaller than d. So if t has a value of, let's say, 2, if you divide, so whatever the value of d, whatever the numerical value of d is, v will be half of that. So dividing the numerical value of d by a number 2, you're going to get the numerical value of v. But these two variables are essentially on the two sides without any plus sign, which means they both has to have the exact same direction, which is a valid equation. আরেকজন জন আরেকটা কি বললা?
V square is equal to u square plus 2as.
আচ্ছা, এই ইকুয়েশন একটা ভেজাল আছে। এই ইকুয়েশনের ভেজালটা আমি তোমাদেরকে বলি। v square equals to u square plus twice as, এখানে একটা ইম্পর্টেন্ট পার্ট হচ্ছে whenever we square any vector quantity, the vector quantity immediately loses its direction property. I'm not sure if I discussed this earlier, but it is something that you should know, but I'm not going to get into the detail of this thing. I'm just going to quote the information and you have to take my word for it for the time being. Two vector quantities can be multiplied with each other by in two different ways. One is called a scalar multiplication, the other one is called a vector multiplication. Very common example of this thing is that whenever we calculate the work done, we multiply force into displacement. But work is a scalar quantity where both force and displacement are both vector quantities. So this multiplication between force and displacement is giving an output which is a scalar quantity. This type of calculation is called scalar multiplication of vector quantities. That's one way to do that. Another similar example is that if you multiply force with the perpendicular distance of the force from the pivot point, you see this perpendicular distance is actually, it may name to be distance, but it has a direction embedded within its description. That word is perpendicular. You cannot choose any direction randomly. You cannot choose any distance randomly. You have to choose the exact perpendicular distance from the force to the pivot point. And once you multiply these two things, so this would imply that this displacement, that this d that we're using over here, something that we're defining as perpendicular distance, this should also be a vector quantity. Now, perpendicular distance and displacement are not the same thing. Displacement in its own virtue means an object has moved from point A to point B, whereas perpendicular distance is a distance information which has to have a stipulated alignment. Both of them are vectors, but they are defined in two different ways.
Yes.
So for those who are having a bit difficulty, let's say burger is a fast food, pizza is a fast food. They are both fast food, but they're not the same thing. So displacement is a vector quantity. Perpendicular distance is also a vector quantity. They both are fast foods, let's say, but they are both expressed by meter. Their unit is both meter, but they are not the exact same thing. So that's sort of a thing. So whenever we multiply force into perpendicular distance of the force from the pivot point, we get moment. Moment happens to be a vector quantity. So in this case, the force and the perpendicular distance vector quantity, these two vector quantities were multiplied in a mechanism or in a way that it ended up giving us another vector quantity, which was named as the moment. So the point I'm trying to make that vector quantities can be multiplied in two different ways. One type of multiplication is going to give us a scalar output. Another type of multiplication is going to give us a vector output. তোমরা যখন ইভেন্চুয়ালি ম্যাথসে P3 তে মনে হয় ভেক্টর আছে, আই থিংক P3 তোমরা তখন পর কিছু পড়ো হচ্ছে A2 তে গিয়ে, so you might actually come across vector calculation in your actual A-levels mathematics course. I hope. If not, then it might be available in the further. Many of you might not take further, so take my word. So basically, whenever we square a certain vector quantity, for example, v square essentially comes from v square. This basically gives you v square. Whenever we square a certain vector quantity, squaring would always mean the scalar multiplication. Squaring a vector does not mean vector multiplication, which means this does not have any direction embedded within itself anymore. By squaring the v final velocity, we have obliterated its direction property. So v square is a scalar quantity where v is a vector quantity. I'll say it again. V square is a scalar quantity where v is a scalar quantity. বুঝাচ্ছে কিনা?
Gee, sir.
Now you tell me, what would v cube be? Should v cube be a scalar or vector?
Scalar.
How do you get v cube?
Sir, vector.
V square is a vector.
Think about how can we get v cube? We can get v cube by v square into v. V square will be a scalar quantity and v itself is a vector quantity. So if I write that this as the breakdown, what breakdown? This breakdown, v cube equals to v square into v. This is a scalar quantity which we just established over here. Now, should this be a vector quantity or should this be a scalar quantity? Velocity on its own.
Vector.
That's going to be a vector quantity, so which means that v cube should also be a vector quantity. বুঝাইতে পারতেছি?
Gee, sir.
Gee, sir.
ঠিক আছে? So if you have question, please respond. So what I want you to understand, what I'm trying to mean over here is that in this equation, v square equals to v square plus twice s, this is a scalar quantity. This is also a scalar quantity. So logic tells us that product of these two things should also be a scalar quantity, which means the entire idea of direction is simply not applicable for this equation on any sides. None of the variables on this equation are relevant for direction. বুঝতে পারছি? এই কথাটা এই জন্য বললাম যে বিকজ আই ব্রট অ্যাবাউট এই কথা এই কোশ্চেনটা এই কথাটা ডিটেইলসে বলার মেইন রিজনটা ছিল যে we talked about the v equals to v plus at, we talked about s equals to t plus half a t square, so why shouldn't we talk about v square equals to e square plus 2s? Why discard that? To make a full complete discussion of all of these three equations of motions, I also wanted to talk about this part. হ্যাঁ বলো যারা
acceleration কি হবে তাহলে acceleration
Well, acceleration itself is a vector, and that s is a displacement which is also a vector. But in this case, those acceleration and displacement, I mean, these two individual vector quantities were made to have scalar multiplication. So the product of those two things is not giving us a vector quantity, like force into displacement for work done.
বুঝাচ্ছি displacement খেয়াল করিনি
Sure, so কোনো problem. বুঝতে পারছি?
জি স্যার
বলবান everyone এই কোশ্চেনটার ফুল ডিসকাশনটা বুঝা গেছে কিনা?
জি স্যার
বলবান রেসপন্স করো, যারা কথা বলতেছো না চ্যাট রুমে রেসপন্স করো।
That's our vision.
It's important that I get to know that you actually got what I'm trying to transfer. Okay, that was 6 people responding to my requirement.
Yes, sir.
বুঝাচ্ছি স্যার
বলুন তোমরা কি মোবাইলে গেমস খেলো? Anyone?
না স্যার
Clash of Clans
Clash of Clans
কে না খেলে
Clash of Clans তো পুরানো হয়। Clash of Clans আমি একটা বহুত খেলছি। আমি একটা
সাবওয়ে
টাইমে ছিলাম
সার্ফার্স
পরে আমাকে ফাইট দিতে দিত না, ভালো ফাইটগুলো দিতে দিত না। পরে আমি নিজে 10টা অ্যাকাউন্ট খুলে নিজে একটা ক্ল্যান বানাইছিলাম।
নিজের 10টা অ্যাকাউন্টের ক্ল্যান?
হ্যাঁ, I owned that clan. I was the clan. I mean, I had 10 different emails with numbers like 1, 2, 3.
ওয়ার্ডেতে করতেন কি?
হ্যাঁ,
আপনি ক্ল্যান ওয়ার সময়
ওয়ার্ডেতে আমি 10টা অ্যাকাউন্ট থেকে 10টা অ্যাটাক দেওয়া তো খুব ডিফিকাল্ট ব্যাপার না। If you know what you're gonna do with those people, you can pretty much make it happen provided everything is upgraded. আমি ফুল আপগ্রেড হওয়ার পরে আমি ওয়ার্ড দিতাম, কারণ আমার একটা অ্যাকাউন্ট ছিল হচ্ছে অনেক বেশি ফার অ্যাহেড আর বাকি সবগুলো অ্যাকাউন্ট ছিল কন্টেম্পোরারি। সো ওয়ার্ডেতে খুব একটা ঝামেলা হতো না। যাও, Clash of Clans, the reason I'm asking because I have recently started to play one specific type of game in my Android mobile, which is called ball busting. You have some you have a gun, the gunner mechanism which can move horizontal plane, and you have some spherical balls which is gonna be falling on from the side of the screen, and they're gonna bounce on the ground. You have to hit them and break them and pop them. They have numbers on them, so there's a certain requirement for how many bullets they need to be popping, and you have to make sure that they don't touch your gun.
So is it like Brick Breaker?
Yeah, it's there are many different games with the same exact concept in the Android Google Play Store. I play 2 of them, and I really like this game.
Sir, simple games খেলে মজা।
Yeah, of course.
TikTok খেলে
কোনটা? মেয়েরা তোমরা কোনো গেম খেলো না?
হ্যাঁ খেলি তো স্যার, অনেক
আচ্ছা, কি
খেলি
খেলো?
Fortnite.
স্যার পিসি এখন সিমস 3টা এখন অনেক আগে খেলতাম ছোটবেলা 8 থেকে 10 বছর পর্যন্ত, আর এখন সাবওয়ে সার্ফার্স আর পিএসপি এমুলেটরে গেমস খেলি, অ্যাকশন গেমস।
Subway Surfers is a very nice game.
Sir, do you play like Dragon Ball Fighters or Dragon Ball Budokai Tenkaichi 3?
I am not into Dragon Ball.
Dragon Ball Kakarot.
I am not into Dragon Ball stuff at all. I am
Oh.
not into Naruto stuff at all.
Sir, anime দেখেনি না?
I am not into
Death
Final
Note.
Fantasy.
or Full Metal Alchemist stuff at all. I am highly deeply into Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Sir, it's an American animation. It's not anime. Avatar, The Last Airbender.
I don't know.
Avatar is the best thing ever.
Well,
So like,
It's an American.
Here is
not
my
anime.
gross description towards this thing. They're all cartoon.
Yes, exactly.
I know many of you are going to feel offended by this statement, but that's the way I process. They're all cartoon. Someone drew them.
It only generalize করলে হয়।
And
Generalize করলে
someone drew them on a digital medium or on a paper medium, and eventually they animated the whole thing. So it's a cartoon.
You don't like animations, man.
Yeah, I prefer to call animation which are 3D animation. For example, Sonic the Hedgehog, Shrek. These are the 3D animation. I mean, I prefer to use the term animation for 3-dimensional movie stars, which
Sir,
were
favorite
designed-
anime কোনটা? Favorite anime?
I don't have any favorite anime. I have only one anime that I like.
Oh,
Avatar: The Last Airbender. I've seen it twice, all the seasons.
স্যার তাহলে আপনি
One Piece.
স্টাইনস গেট দেখেন।
হ্যাঁ, হতে পারে। আচ্ছা, এরপর প্রবলেম বলো। Page number 5 কোনো প্রবলেম? This is the question that I wanted to discuss in full idea, and then rest of the questions are pretty dumb. Yeah, 29. Question number 29. How can you solve 29? Give it a look, everyone. Generate some idea. How can you solve 29? I mean, my earnest request to all of you, you know that you already know that you have to know why the other answer shouldn't be correct, along why the correct answer is correct, obviously. But one thing is also important, that if you are allowed to be mistaken, but whether you make a mistake or not, get a reason for that mistake so that you can be corrected about it. Don't just randomly guess. Okay, mini, mini, mo. Sir, C is the correct answer. Why? I don't know. That's not appropriate. That doesn't help you learn. So read the question, try to figure out a logical construct in your head to come up with the correct answer. Think about it.
Sir, is B the correct answer?
স্যার সি তো হওয়ার কথা।
I'll tell you the answer, but think about it. You can have different
Try to
opinions.
wait করেন।
Yeah. I want to request to take time and think about the answer.
বি হবে।
মামুন সাহেব, আসো, এদিকে আসো। আমার একটু কফি খাও না। আর এই দুইটা খাইতে পারবো না, অনেক শক্ত হয়ে গেছে। আমি ট্রাই করছিলাম, আমি খাইছি, যে দুইটা খাইছি ওই দুটো খুব মজা করে খাইছি, কিন্তু কালকে জায়গায় থাকলে রাতে রাতে খাই ফেলতে পারতাম, কিন্তু পরে ঘুমায় যাওয়ার পরে পরে আর কেন এগুলো কি আর নরম হয়?
এগুলো একেবারে চালের গুলোর উঠে আছে না,
হ্যাঁ,
ওই রকম
হওয়ার কথা,
হ্যাঁ,
কিন্তু এগুলো হয়ে গেছে পিঠার মতো শক্ত।
এইগুলো হয়ে গেছে মনে করেন দিলে না খেয়ে পারে তো খালা খালা বললেন যে খালা তো বলে আচ্ছা তো পাথরের দেশে এর কারণে শক্তি
আচ্ছা সমস্যা, ছোট মানুষ বানাইছে, ব্যাপার না। জসিমের থেকে ছোট মানুষই নত এক্সপার্ট হয়ে সারা ব্যাপার না। পাবলিকে প্যারা দেয় না। তুমি আমার কফি খাও। You try to speculate of some answer, and then I'm going to show you the easiest way to solve this kind of questions. In my opinion, the easiest way.
Sir, B হবে।
Okay. আচ্ছা যারা তুমি আনসার আনসার কি পাইছিলা?
স্যার কিসের?
ওই যে লিখছিলা যে পেপার 1 আনসার দি নাই।
হ্যাঁ স্যার পেয়েছি।
আচ্ছা,
থ্যাংক
good.
ইউ।
Okay, I think I can start. You do not have any angle given in this figure, but you are given the alignments of the forces. The question says precisely it is held closed in the horizontal position. So it is held closed in the horizontal position, which means the equilibrium is available here, which means the closed polygon made or the closed triangle made with these three forces should make a closed triangle. So let's try to draw a closed triangle using these three alignments: downwards, downward left, upward left. So let me try this. So I'm going to draw, let's say, one line that's going to be like this. This is going to represent my T. I'm drawing this figure over here to make sense with you. And then I'm going to need another line, let's say green, that should represent this thing. I do not know how much the length of this force is going to be. So I'm currently drawing the lengths imaginary, and then I need to have a vertical force.
Sir, will the length not be the length of the arrow?
Not essentially, because this is showing the length of the cable. The figure that you have available is not drawn to scale in terms of the length of the arrow, because the question didn't tell you that, so you cannot assume it. But the alignments are true. The directions are true. Now, if you wonder how do you know the directions are true, there is a good way to judge that as well. You see, I told you in lecture classes that if multiple forces working on a single object has to produce equilibrium, I mean, we have to check whether they produce equilibrium of force by appropriate calculation, but we can very easily check whether those forces produces equilibrium of moment. And that would be if we extend these forces in a single direction and they all pass through the same point, then we can say those forces should be in equilibrium. For example, let's say if I extend the line of action of this force, if I extend the line of action of this force, which is gonna be along this line, then they are having a cross point over here. Now all that we are left to judge is whether the tension works along the same, comes to the same point or not. So let me try and draw that. So you'll see that it is true. Do you understand? These three forces are going to the aimed to the same point, which means the resultant moment is zero. So the alignments are perfectly good, but the lengths are not. So I need, so in this, if I draw this figure, this is supposed to be upward left, this is supposed to be downward right, and I need to draw another vertical force. And vertical force আমি চাইলে এখান থেকে আঁকতে পারি, আমি চাইলে এইটা এই মাথাটাকে এন্ড করে রাখতে। So let's আমি এখান থেকে আঁকি. So I'm going to draw one vertical force from here. Let's say I'm going to draw this with dark blue. Amon, শুনে দিয়েছো? বলো। Sorry. So I can try to draw another line over here. I do not know how long this line is going to be, so I might as well try to draw this line as big as I want. And then I'm going to have to make this a closed triangle. So I'm going to require to elongate this line so that I can get the same element. So I'm going to use the same color. So it's going to be a bit of a trial and error, but this is the easiest way to draw this thing. I'll show you why. So let's say this is the closed triangle that I'm going to have. So let me erase up this part because I don't need this anymore. And this weight should be over here. Can you all agree that this is a correct vector triangle for this one? But this is T, this is H, and this is W.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Now you can simply use your ruler, measure up those lengths, and now go for your answer. That's it. So do you get my point? Now, if you wonder, sir, is it going to be correct all the time? Well, the thing is, we try to draw a proportional figure for the vector triangle. What do we mean by proportional figure? if you increase the length of any of the side of this triangle, the other two are going to increase in a fixed proportion. So that this, I mean, you are going to, you can get a bigger triangle than this, or you can draw a smaller triangle than this, but it will always be a bracket channel ভিতর. So but it will always be a similar triangle. So which means, because you are not trying to find out the exact value of these forces, you are trying to find out the order of magnitude of this force, which means you are trying to find out which one is big, which one is middle, which one is small. That's what you're trying to go for. This is, in my opinion, as far my experience goes, is the easiest way to find out that information. So see if it makes sense, everyone.
Sir, H এর direction এইদিকে কেমন?
H direction is downward left. I can see it over here. It's downward left. So I drew a parallel line with H. So I actually do this line, and eventually I dragged it over here.
না মানে আপনি ড্রয়িং এ না, মানে ওয়েট তো সবসময় ভার্টিক্যালি ডাউনওয়ার্ডস কাজ করে, আর টেনশন তো রোপের ডিরেকশনে কাজ করে ওয়ালের দিকে, বাট এইচ ফোর্সের ডিরেকশনটা এইদিকে হওয়ার কি কোনো রিজন আছে?
হ্যাঁ, রিজনটা হচ্ছে, out of the total interaction of these three forces, to have a zero resultant force, we must have all the forces producing a same directional closed triangle. They should be along the same direction. For example, here the alignment that I have drawn over here, they are producing a clockwise rotation. I mean, you have a continuous triangle. So if this was in the opposite way around, you would not get that scenario. That's one way to express this. The other way to express this is that this thing is over here as well. The question already gives us the direction of this thing. বুঝা যাচ্ছে? এইচ এর ডিরেকশনটা কেন এরকম হবে সেটা আরেকটা এক্সপ্লেনেশন আছে, সেটা আমি বলবো। আগে এই পর্যন্ত যেটা বলছি সেটা বুঝা গেছে কিনা আগে দেখো।
জি স্যার।
ঠিক আছে? So এটা একটা জিনিস। আর আরেকটা জিনিস হচ্ছে, why the H has to be aligned in that exact direction that as shown in the figure. There's another explanation for this. The other explanation is, try to have a look. T, if I try to find out the components of T, one of the components of T is going to be vertically upwards, the other component is going to be towards left. Weight is only working downwards. So if you have to balance out this leftward force, which is a part of the T, H should have a rightward force. The one component of H should be working towards right, so that these two can cancel each other out, because W does not have any horizontal component. So out of these three forces, the two horizontal components should be matched up by the effect of two of the forces, because W is only having a vertical component. So what I'm trying to mean, that horizontal component of X, which is working towards left, I'm showing this as minus, plus horizontal component of H, which is working towards right, I'm showing this as plus. These two should be total altogether 0. Do you understand? Do you understand? So H has to work towards right, and because it has to go in this direction, so I mean this is the starting point of the H force, reaction force of the hinge, and this is the cross point of the C force. So it has to be along this alignment. So if it has to go to the right, the only logical way is downward right. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
বলুন, কোশ্চেন থাকলে কোশ্চেন বলো।
স্যার।
হ্যাঁ বলো।
স্যার, উপরে যদি হরিজন্টাল কম্পোনেন্ট হয়, নিচে কি ভার্টিক্যাল কম্পোনেন্ট হবে না?
হ্যাঁ, নিচের ভার্টিক্যাল কম্পোনেন্ট থাকবে। হ্যাঁ, আচ্ছা মনে করো এটা হচ্ছে হরিজন্টাল ইকুয়েশনের ফর্মুলা। ভার্টিক্যাল ইকুয়েশন ফর্মুলাটা আমি লিখতেছি, লিখলে তুমি বুঝতে পারবা। ভার্টিক্যাল ইকুয়েশন ফর্মুলা হচ্ছে, আমি লিখবো কিভাবে। আচ্ছা, let's I'm going to write this with black. So let's say T, vertical component of T is working in the upward direction, vertical component of H is going to work downward direction, and weight is also working in downward direction. So I can write Ty, which is a positive, plus minus Hy, which is downwards, so negative, plus minus W. Why am I writing it in this fashion? Because I'm trying to consider them vectors and direction. That should be also 0. Yeah, these are the two different individual directions of component division.
আচ্ছা স্যার।
বুঝে গেছে?
জি
পোলাপান এই লজিকটা কি সবাই ধরতে পারছো?
জি স্যার।
কেন এই লজিকটা নিতে হচ্ছে সেই
স্যার
রিজনটা কি বুঝতে পারছো? বলো।
স্যার ডাব্লিউ তে নেগেটিভ দিলাম কেন আবার বলতে
Because weight is working down vertically downwards. I assume upward as positive and rightward as positive. Downward vectors or হ্যাঁ বলো।
বুঝেছি স্যার বুঝেছি।
আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে। কারণ কোশ্চেন থাকলে বলো প্লিজ। এটা খুব কনসেপচুয়ালি চ্যালেঞ্জিং একটা প্রবলেম ইফ ইট ডাজন্ট মেক সেন্স টু ইউ ইন দ্য ফার্স্ট প্লেস। একবার না বুঝলে পরে সবসময় সাফার করতে থাকবা। Since none of you have any expressions, so I'm going to move on to the next one. It was simple, it was a repeat question, it was simple question. 36. Beautiful question. I'm going to take it over there. I want you to logically try to understand how you could possibly solve this. Well, the answer can be guessed very effectively from your instinct. Well, it is the hor kotha. But I want you to have an explicable way for how the answer is that. Start thinking about this question. Read the question, try to understand the question, and try to come up with a logical way to explain the answer. Whatever answer that you think is correct, try to get the reason of that. আগে টাকা দিছো?
আমিনের কাছ থেকে নিয়ে কেটে নিতাম। ওটা টাকা দিয়ে আসছি, এখন তার টাকা
গতকাল রাতে খাওয়া দাওয়া?
রাতে একটা মনে হয় খাতা লেখা হয়েছে। আমিনে বলবো যে সে বললে খাতা লেখা হয়েছে, কেন আমি টাকা।
আচ্ছা সেটা আমি দিয়ে আসবো। So what do you think is the correct answer?
C.
D.
Okay.
Sir, B.
You can have different answers, but you need to have some significant logic in your head for that answer. I'll discuss. Anyone else? Anything else? Anyone? Maybe not. So let me go ahead and for the solution of this problem. Have a look. We have some chat window. We have DBD. Okay. Try to understand. What is this word? Same picture. So the weight of this picture is same for both of the figures, right? The weight should be same, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
You are trying to support using the help of these two strings the weight of the body, and the upward force over here is R1, upward force over here is R2. Don't you think this should be equals to W by magnitude, and this should also be equal to W by magnitude? I'm not talking about T1 and T2 right now. I'm talking about R1 and R2 right now. Shouldn't
Yes,
both of these two things should be exactly equal to W? Check this out. It should be, right? Because it's the same picture. It cannot have different weights. What is going to work here and what is going to work here, that's okay. But the string, the single string that we have at the top of the binding system, that will have to support the weight. So the magnitude of these two values of the forces cannot be unequal. So a duta bad. So now we're going to judge between these two. But a logic ta dhora bujha geche kina shobar? Weight এই দুটো ফোর্সের ম্যাগনিটিউড ওয়েটের সমান হতে হবে। এই লজিকটা কি বুঝা গেছে সবার?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's the first step. Now let's have a try to analyze these forces for our convenience. So what I'm going to do is
Yes, sir, একটা কোশ্চেন ছিল।
বলো 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 বলো।
আপনি যে আর মানে R1 আর R2 যে W এর সমান হবে, তো T2 আর T1 এর তো একটা ডাউনওয়ার্ড এফেক্ট আছে, তাহলে R2 হচ্ছে ওয়েট প্লাস T2 আর T1 এর ডাউনওয়ার্ড এফেক্টের সমান হওয়ার কথা না?
Yes.
তাহলে R1 কে is equal to W কেন ধরলেন শুধু?
Well, because T1 and T2 are not essentially equal. R1 and R2 should be equal because R1 is exactly equal to the opposite of weight. I mean, think about it. If you are trying to hang a piece of picture, whatever your support system is, and if you have a single string going that you are hanging from, the tension on the string should come from the weight of the picture, right? So that tension is essentially, I mean, the vertical string, a vertical string tension ta naam hocche R1, a vertical string tension ta naam hocche R2. How can this be different than the weight? Because all the weight of this whole thing is going to be working as a single line through this string.
বুঝেছি।
আচ্ছা, okay. So let's try to give it a go for the T1 and T2. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to elaborate, do some drawing over here, and I want you to keep looking at the situation and understand. I'm going to choose a thinner line. So take a good look. R2 ছোট করলে হ্যাঁ ঠিক আছে। আমরা ইভেন্চুয়ালি ওটাতে ড্রয়িং করা লাগবে, বাট আপাতত একটা ফিগার আগে বুঝাই, তারপর আমরা পরেরটাতে যাব। For the sake of drawing this figure, I'm going to try to draw a reference horizontal line over here. Let's say this is my horizontal line. Is this the thinnest of the lines? No, this is. Okay. So I'm going to make this dot, 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 dot because I don't need all of it. মনে করো আমাদের এই অ্যাঙ্গেলটা হচ্ছে let's say theta 1. I'm using theta 1 because I'm পরের ফিগারের জন্য theta 2 দিব। So logically এটাও theta 1 হবে. If you wonder why, because this is an isosceles triangle. You can measure this up. Now, if this is theta 1, by the idea of parallel line and alternate angle idea, this angle should be also how much? Theta 1?
Theta 1.
Right? Now, why am I getting to this angle? Because I want to divide this T1 force into two components. Try to understand. The vertical component, the horizontal component of this T1 force, let me draw this with a bit thicker line. The horizontal component of this T1 force, that's going to work in this direction. And this is going to have a value of T1 cos theta 1. For this T1, that is. The vertical component of this, and the vertical component of this T1 force should be working in this direction. That should be how much? T1 sin theta 1. Edu ঠিক আছে?
Yes, sir.
Now, if I try to do the same thing for the right side, let's say I'm going to show that by the blue. In this direction, in the same way, you're going to have theta 1 over here. This is going to be still theta 1, alternate angle. This is going to be T1 cos theta 1. And on this direction, we're going to have T2, T1 sin theta 1.
T2 জানো?
This, এটা তো T1 ই। T2 তো পরে ফিগার T2।
আচ্ছা স্যার, আপনাদের একটু
না, এই ফিগার দুটো ফোর্স হচ্ছে T1। অরিজিনাল ফিগারটা দেখাই, এই যে T1 T1।
হ্যাঁ স্যার, T1 দেখছি।
ঠিক আছে। So these two horizontal forces are going to cancel each other out because they're exactly equal to each other. But these two are going to get added up because they're both working in the same direction. So if I just add these up, I'm going to have a 2 over here. বুঝা গেছে?
Yes, sir.
So this 2T1 sin theta 1 is the vertical resultant of these two forces, which should be equals to R1, which should be equals to W. So I can write this, that this should be equals to R1. Logically, this should be numerically equals to W. I can try and do the same thing over here. If I label the angle over here as theta 2 and label the angle over here as theta 2, the horizontal forces components are going to cancel out and the vertical downward forces can be written as 2T2 sin theta 2. I'm not showing the individual direction, individual breakdown over here, but I'm trying to mean that this is going to be happening at the exact similar mechanism like this. So I didn't do the whole drawing. Horizontal forces will cancel out and the vertical forces get joined together. That's why 2 is coming up over here. On the other hand, this should be also equals to the total vertical upward force, which is R2, which is logically equals to W, which means this is equals to W and this is also equals to W. তার মানে এই দুটো ফোর্সের ভ্যালু কি হবে? ইকুয়াল হতে হবে। Now try this equation. 2T1 sin theta 1 equals to 2T2 sin theta 2. 2 bad. Now we want to compare between T1 and T2. To be able to do this comparison, we need to compare the values of sin theta 1 and sin theta 2. Now, before I tell you anything, just by looking at these two figures, for which figure do you think the sin ratio should be bigger and for which one should be smaller?
The second one should be bigger.
What I'm asking you is that should sin theta 1 be bigger than sin theta 2 or should sin theta 1 be smaller than the sin theta 2?
Sin theta 2 should be bigger.
Sin theta 2 should be bigger because this is a bigger angle, as you can see in the figure, and they're both acute angle. For within the acute angle region, the way sin theta behaves is that this is if y is sin theta and this is the theta. Acute angle means less than 90 degrees. So let's say if this is 90 degrees, so you have a range like this. But beyond 90 degrees, original flip ho jay. So for the acute angle, for all the acute angle, as theta value increases, sin theta value also increases, which means sin theta 2 should be bigger than the sin theta 1. So if I just show you some circles, just to make sense, let's say this is a small circle, this is a large circle. So logic tells us because the product of these two things should be equal to the product of these two things, between T1 and T2, which one should be bigger and which one should be smaller?
T2 বড়
T1 বড়.
You see, this one is small, this one is big. The product of these two should be equal to the product of these two. So between T1 and T2, which one should be bigger?
T1 বড় হবে।
T1 should be bigger. So if I show use another different color, let's say green, let's say, so in that case, T1 should be large and T2 should be small. So the product of these two things is equal to product of these two things. For those who are still not making sense of it, I can show you one equation. Let's say I can write that 6 into 2 is perfectly equal to 3 into 4, right? So you see 2 is smaller than 4, so it has to be the 6 has to be bigger than 3, something like that. So ultimately ki daralo, T1 is bigger, T2 is smaller. So which one is the correct answer? B is the correct answer. Bam. আমি পুরো ক্যালকুলেশনটা জুম আউট করতেছি, সবাই আরেকবার দেখো, কোনো কোশ্চেন থাকলে আমাকে জিজ্ঞেস করো। এভরিওয়ান টেক এ গুড লুক।
সরি sin theta 1 তো sin theta 2 কে কি করলেন আরেকবার কি দেখাবেন, বুঝাই দেন।
এখানে দুইটা sin theta t1 sin theta 1 অ্যাড করে 2 t1 sin theta 1 হয়েছিল, এটা বুঝছিলা? এই পার্টটুকু
জি
বুঝে
স্যার,
গেছো?
এটা বুঝেছি, কিন্তু ওই যে 2t1 sin theta 1 equals to 2t2।
মানে এখানে কম্পারিজনটা কিভাবে করলাম?
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ,
This number is definitely smaller than this number, so this number had to be bigger than this number. I mean, big into small could give us small into big. You cannot get into big. You cannot get big into big equals to small into small. That's not going to work out. So what we decided upon these two things, so we compared between these two things and decided upon these two things.
so it is just assumption ছিল।
No, it assumption ছিল না, it was an observation by looking at the angles over here. Theta 1 is a small angle, theta 2 is a bigger angle, so sin theta 1 would be a smaller number, sin theta 2 would be a bigger number.
আচ্ছা,
For example, sin 30 is 0.5, sin 45 is somewhere around 1.4141 এরকম. If you use any acute angle with a sine proportion, if you use a smaller angle, you're going to get a smaller number. If you use a bigger angle, you're going to get a bigger number. That's how sine behaves. That's what I showed you over here, that within the range of 0 to 90 degree, as theta value increases, sin theta value also increases, which means smaller value of theta is going to give you a smaller value of sin theta, bigger value of theta is going to give you a bigger value of sin theta. Since theta 1 is smaller than theta 2, so sin theta 1 should also be smaller than sin theta 2. That's the reason, not an assumption, it's an observation.
স্যার,
Yes.
স্যার এটা ম্যাথমেটিক্যালি বুঝেছি, কিন্তু আপনি কি এটা লাইক ম্যাথমেটিক্যাল ওয়েজ ছাড়া বুঝাতে পারবেন?
ম্যাথমেটিক্যাল ওয়েসটা তো আমি এটা বুঝাতে পারি না, ম্যাথমেটিক্যাল ওয়েসটা কেমনে বুঝাবো? দাঁড়াও, চিন্তা করতেছি আমি, ওয়েট।
না স্যার, অন্য কোনো লজিক।
I cannot think of another way to make sense with it. I mean, the reason this explanation actually works because we could visually see that the theta 1 is smaller than theta 2. I mean, the other way I could go for explanation is by the length of the strings, that I can see that this length of the string is bigger, this length of the string is smaller. So if I want to bring about the idea of length of the strings, then I have to take refuge to cosine rule. And cosine rule দিয়ে explain করতে গেলে সেটা এই sin proportion থেকে আরো বিদ্যুৎ হবে।
থাক স্যার, লাগবে না।
বুঝছো কেন? বুঝছো কি বলছি?
জি
I mean,
স্যার।
we do not have the numerical values available for RT or RT, R1, RT1 or R2T2, anything like that. What you can visually see that this angle over here is small, this angle over here is big, and the other thing that you can see is this string length is small and this string length is bigger. So you can either use the angle information or you can use the string length information, or maybe in appropriate case you could use both of them together. But I do not honestly know a way how could I I mean, I can find out a way to use the length information, but in my head, as far as I can think, that's gonna be even worse than this expression. Because we usually deal with the length of the triangle. Is there a way to deal with the length? This is a bigger angle, this is a smaller angle, so oh hey, I think there is another way that I can help. Yeah, there is another way. Yep, my brain apparently is helping me out today. I'm gonna try to explain this in a theoretical way. just so that you understand. Maybe that can make good sense to you. Have a look. A second way of explanation. I'm gonna need both of those figures in my view, side by side. Beautiful, perfectly okay. What you can see over here, that this one is a much bigger angle and this one is a much smaller angle, right?
Yes, sir.
So if I draw the sum of the vertical components over here, which should be equal to T1, I mean, you can see that this force is more horizontal, this force is more vertical. Now, the vertical component of T1, let's say T1y, numerically should be equals to half of R1, right? Do you understand this part?
Yes.
Because 2T1y would get added together and produce the R1 altogether. I'm writing the numerical equation over here, irrespective of direction. A single vertical component should be half of the R1. Or I can also write half of W. Because 2T1, 81 a vertical component plus 81 a vertical component, দুইটা সাম করলে কি হবে?
R1 হবে।
টোটাল R1 টা হবে। সো এইটা কি বুঝতেছো?
জি স্যার।
আচ্ছা। So এখন আমি যদি এইদিকে আরেকটা ফোর্স রাখি, let's say here we're going to have another vertical element. So I can write that T2y should be equals to half W. তার মানে হচ্ছে T1y should be equals to T2y. So এই দুইটা vertical component দুটো equal হতে হবে. Now have a look. If I now try to judge, this force is more slanted than this one. This one is more vertical, right?
হ্যাঁ।
So this one's vertical component should be exactly equal to this one's vertical component. Which means, I mean, if you think about it, let's say let's say if I draw a vertical component over here, let's say if I've drawn a vertical component over here, let's say T2 is showing up to be this much, a bit more vertical, whereas T1 is showing up to be this much, which is more slanted. But both of their vertical component value should be exactly equal. Do I understand? Does that make sense? It's not about the length of the string, it's about the magnitude of the forces that I'm drawing over here, not the length of the string. I'm trying to take your attention towards these two angles. This one is the T2 and this one is the T1. Both of their individual vertical components should be equal, but one is a bit more vertical compared to the other one, which means the one that is less vertical, T1, that has to have a much bigger value altogether so that its vertical component is exactly equal to this one's vertical component as well. This is a horizontal line. এইটা কি বুঝা যাচ্ছে? বুঝা যাচ্ছে না?
না স্যার বুঝেছি।
না, যারা বুঝে নাই।
স্যার বুঝার চেষ্টা করেছি।
আচ্ছা, এই ফিগারের আগ পর্যন্ত বুঝছিলা তো?
জি স্যার।
আচ্ছা, এই ফিগারটা আমি আবার ক্লিয়ার করে বোঝাচ্ছি। মনে করো একটা সার্টেন ভার্টিক্যাল কম্পোনেন্ট হওয়ার কথা হচ্ছে 10 নিউটন, ঠিক আছে? নাম্বার দিয়ে বুঝলে ইজিলি বোঝা যাবে। মনে করো এইদিকে একটা 12 নিউটন ফোর্স থাকলে একটা সার্টেন অ্যাঙ্গেলের জন্য আমাদের এখানে তোমার মনে করো এই ফোর্সটা টোটাল ভ্যালু হচ্ছে, মানে এই হাইপোটেনিউসটা টোটাল ভ্যালু হচ্ছে মনে করো 12 নিউটন। মনে করো সেটার ভার্টিক্যাল কম্পোনেন্ট 10 নিউটন হয়, এখানে একটা সার্টেন অ্যাঙ্গেল হচ্ছে। এখানে যদি আমি আরেকটু বড় অ্যাঙ্গেলে একটা ফোর্স রাখতে চাই, তাহলে এসেনশিয়ালি এই ফোর্সটার লেংথ অবভিয়াসলি 12 এর থেকে বড় হতে হবে না? যদি এই ফোর্সের হরিজন্টাল এই ফোর্সের ভার্টিক্যাল কম্পোনেন্টটা এক্স্যাক্টলি 10 নিউটনই হইতে হয়, তাহলে এইটার ইন্ডিভিজুয়াল লেংথ 12 থেকে বড় হইতে হবে না?
হ্যাঁ।
That's what I'm saying. That because T2 is making a smaller angle and T1 is making a bigger angle, the value of T1 is supposed to be bigger compared to the value of T2.
ঠিক আছে স্যার।
I'm not sure which one is easier for you to process. Which one is easier for you to process?
Second, sir.
Okay, can
আমার
everyone
জন্য
else?
Second one is faster.
Second one is easier.
I mean, it takes less time to think about the second one.
It takes less time because I wrote this equation from here. You could understand this equation because you have already seen this explanation over here. If I wrote this equation right off the bat without you knowing about this thing, you would never be happy with it.
So এটা আমি আগে থেকে এরকম কিছু একটা assume করে নিছিলাম।
Okay, that's very good. That's very good. Having correct instance. But anyway, বুঝে গেছে কিনা?
জি স্যার, বুঝতে পারছি।
So let's move on. Yeah, give this one a try. Number 40. Help yourself. Four zero. Which one is the correct answer?
Or B.
এটা করছো?
হ্যাঁ
মানে ফিগারে যে ফোর্সের ব্রেকডাউনগুলো করছো?
হ্যাঁ স্যার।
জি স্যার।
আচ্ছা, সবাই কি পারছো? না পারলে আমি দেখাবো। পারা কথা। আচ্ছা, অল্প করে দেখাই। এদিকে হচ্ছে টি, এদিকে হচ্ছে টি, এদিকে হচ্ছে ডাব্লিউ। ওয়ান সেকেন্ড। এই টি এর এদিকে হচ্ছে টি কস থিটা, এদিকে হচ্ছে টি কস থিটা। টি কস থিটা ক্যান্সেল আউট হবে। ভার্টিক্যালি আসবে হচ্ছে এখান থেকে একটা টি সাইন থিটা, এখান থেকে একটা টি সাইন থিটা। সো দিস উইল বি ডাব্লিউ, আর উপর দিয়ে থাকবে হচ্ছে 2 টি সাইন থিটা। 2 কোথা থেকে আসছে এটা বুঝো কিনা দেখো। হোয়াট ইজ দ্য 2 কাম ফ্রম?
দুইটা টি না তো দুইটা টি দুইটা টি।
সো এখান থেকে হিসাব করে যেটা আসে আনসার হচ্ছে বি ইজ দ্য কারেক্ট রেসপন্স। ইয়েস। নাম্বার 42 ইজ এ অ্যামেজিং কোশ্চেন। এটা স্টুডেন্টরা খুব কমনলি ভুল করে। আই উড রিয়েলি লাইক ইউ টু টেক গুড অ্যাটেনশন ইন অ্যাটেম্প্ট অফ কোশ্চেন নাম্বার 42। এটা ট্রাই করো সবাই একটু, আমি হেল্প করব।
করেছি।
কত আসছে আনসার?
এ
আচ্ছা, আমার আনসার মুখস্থ নাই। মার্কসের সাথে মিলা দেখা হয়েছে কিনা?
জি স্যার।
আচ্ছা, হলে তাহলে একটু সবর করবা, অন্য কোশ্চেন গুলো অ্যাটেম্প করতে থাকো, আমি সবার সাথে একটু ডিসকাশন করে নেই।
স্যার অ্যাকচুয়ালি তো করছি
সবগুলি?
হ্যাঁ
ওয়াও,
করার কথা ছিল না।
ঠিক আছে, আমি নেক্সট ক্লাসে আর এরকম বেশি বেশি প্রবলেম করাবো না। এক্সক্লুসিভলি নিড টু নো বেসিসে প্রবলেম দেখাবো। ডোন্ট ওয়ারি। আচ্ছা, তোমাদের কারো ছোট ভাই বোন কি এবার ক্লাস 10 এ আছে? or cousin I need not time to advertise here. আচ্ছা, আমি তারপরে ইনফরমেশনটা বলি। ইফ ইউ ক্যান গেট দিস ইনফরমেশন, আইড লাইক টু নো দিস। সেটা হচ্ছে যে আমি অ্যাকচুয়ালি আমার ক্লাস 10 এর ব্যাচ স্টুডেন্টদেরকে বলছি to get this information out of the school, but apparently the school is not so definite about this. কোশ্চেনটা হচ্ছে যে এবার তো কোভিড চলতেছে, সো সামনের রেজিস্ট্রেশনে যারা মে জুনে পরীক্ষা দিবে ক্লাস 10 মানে ও লেভেলসে, তাদের তো প্র্যাকটিক্যালি দুটো পেপার থাকে, এটা হচ্ছে আইদার প্র্যাকটিক্যাল পেপার 3 অথবা হচ্ছে অল্টারনেটিভ প্র্যাকটিক্যাল পেপার 4। এখন তো কোভিডের জন্য সব স্কুল বন্ধ, কোচিং বন্ধ, ফিজিক্যাল কন্ট্যাক্ট তো আমাদের বন্ধ, গ্যাদারিং বন্ধ, সো আমরা তো ল্যাব প্র্যাকটিস করতে পারতেছি না। কোভিড যদি ইভেন্চুয়ালি অক্টোবর নভেম্বর দিকে শেষ হয়, তাহলে আমাদের হাতে সময় থাকবে হচ্ছে কত 4-5 মাস। 4-5 মাসে একটা পোলাপানকে ল্যাব করায়, ল্যাব শিখে পরীক্ষা দেওয়ানো পসিবল, বাট ইটস নট ভেরি easy in the first place, and for students which are not very what can I say attentive, they're not very attentive at it, or they lack attention, they can have a very hard time. So আমি পড়ানোদেরকে যেটা বলছিলাম যে তাদের স্কুল থেকে জেনে বের করতে যে if all the schools would opt for paper 4 at least for the next May June session. If that's the case, then I can start the paper 4 for the class 10, but apparently I don't have any fixed decision out of them yet. So তোমাদের কারো ছোট ভাই বোন যদি কোনো স্কুলে পড়ে, and if they ever come across this kind of a definite decision out of the school authority যে next year আমরা P4 নিব বা exclusively P3 নিব, and we know for when the school is declaring that for a fact, let me know.
P4 দেওয়া যায়?
P4 দেওয়া যায় না, P3 একটা ব্যাপার, ASA কবে ল্যাব কম্পালসরি, so you don't have that opportunity for AS.
So sir, where will we practice?
You will have to somehow manage to practice irrespective of the COVID or not, but the O-level kids have an opportunity not to at all practice and still go for the exam and pass. That's why what they are gonna do is a question, but what you're gonna do is not a question. You're gonna have to do the lab, and you're gonna have to do it anyway.
2 বছর পরে এস দিলেই তো হয়।
2 বছর পরে এস দিলে কি হবে?
অনলাইনেও হতে পারে না, মানে কোনো ভাবে যদি ওরা প্ল্যান করে, সিআইরা
কি প্ল্যান করবে?
মানে যে আমিনুল স্যার বলছিল যে স্যার যে অনলাইনেও নেওয়ার প্ল্যান করতে পারে।
Aminu sir, what Aminu sir says is actually, I mean, it's not out of the question. Well, it's not, but I mean, I am very skeptic about it. I personally am very skeptic about it. Skeptic মানে হচ্ছে what I mean is that অনলাইনে পরীক্ষা নিবে, বা সেই অনলাইন এক্সামের টোটাল ভ্যালিডেশন or uniformity of the input এনশিওর করবে কেমনে? তুমি বাংলাদেশে ঢাকা শহরে বসে তুমি যে অ্যাপারেটাস সেটআপে যে রিসোর্স পারসনস গুলো যে রিসোর্স ইউজ করে তুমি এক্সাম হলে বসে পরীক্ষা দিবা, ঠিক আছে? should a kid living in, let's say, rural India or living in Congo or Ethiopia where the CIST offers their syllabus, should they have the exact same opportunities?
No.
The same level of access of opportunities for appearing the exam is not going to be same everywhere. That was point number 1. Point number 2, how are they gonna exclusively make sure that there is no cheating happening? I mean, are they gonna set up like individual data centers where kids are gonna drop in and sit in individual cubicles for 2 hours and give their exam and come out? If they can arrange that, then a physical exam is not impossible. যে আমি সব স্টুডেন্ট মানে মনে করো সাইবার ক্যাফেতে যেরকম ছোট ছোট কিউবিকল থাকে না, ওরকম ছোট ছোট কিউবিকল করে সবাইকে কিউবিকলের ভিতরে বসার পরীক্ষা নিল, or maybe they hire a huge stadium and they sit everyone 6 feet apart with individual handheld chairs like the blue chairs that I have in my class, and that way the exam happens. That is also possible, but online exam how would they ensure the কি বলবো মানে cleanliness of the exam? Do you get my point?
Sir, কোনোভাবে তো করা যায়, but it would be a very long and lengthy process.
In my opinion, it would never be reliable. It could be a long and lengthy process, but I mean, taking an O-level exam over the duration of 6 months, is that even logical? মনে করেন প্রতিদিন অল্প অল্প কিছু স্টুডেন্টের পরীক্ষা নিলাম in my facility that I have arranged. So আমার একটা বাংলাদেশের সব স্টুডেন্টদের পরীক্ষা নিতে আমার O-level পরীক্ষা শেষ করতে লাগলো 6 মাস. So that is not pragmatic either.
Sir, I've heard that
বলো।
all right. sorry. I've heard that এবারে October November exam online নেবে with the cameras on. So like basically camera গুলা I guess question paper এর দিকে দেওয়া থাকবে so that no one can cheat. I'm not sure. Like I heard it from a teacher was saying that apparently British Council এর সাথে কথা বলেছে and they're saying that ওদের এবারের O level October November যারা দিবে ওদেরটা এভাবেই নেওয়া হবে but they're not confirmed. The thing is British Council ঠিক মতন কিছুই বলতেছে না
হ্যাঁ
So,
ব্রিটিশ কাউন্সিল কিছু বলতেছে না
yeah.
because ব্রিটিশ কাউন্সিল ঠিক মতো জানে না whenever
Yeah,
CM
exactly.
come to
Yeah,
a
yeah.
অক্টোবর নভেম্বর তো ক্যান্সেল হয়ে গিয়েছে।
না অক্টোবর নভেম্বর এখন ক্যান্সেল করা নাই রেজিস্ট্রেশন চলতেছে এখনো
স্যার যে আমার একটা ফ্রেন্ড হচ্ছে দিবে, ও বললো যে ক্যান্সেল হয়ে গিয়েছে।
না আমি যদি জানি রেজিস্ট্রেশন চলতেছে এখনো
হ্যাঁ এখনো ক্যান্সেল হয় নাই
ডেফিনেটলি এখনো ক্যান্সেল করা নাই what they said that we are figuring out way to take good exam. That's where the information flow stopped. And now, how far ahead are they in that process? It hasn't been updated yet. But ওরা অক্টোবর নভেম্বর জন্য রেজিস্ট্রেশন নিচ্ছে
স্যার কোভিড এর কোনো উইকনেস বা ভ্যাকসিন এখনো পর্যন্ত পাওয়া যায় নাই
না
আহারে
স্যার কোনো পসিবিলিটি কি আছে যে এস হবে না এ2 হবে না ডাইরেক্ট ইউনিভার্সিটি
life could have been so much better. Well, I mean that I mean don't take it otherwise. I mean that's the I mean what can I say? That's the best thing that could happen to the kids. And worst thing that could happen to the parents. I mean they're investing so much resources into you to get you a certificate. You are passed because of COVID. No grade, no percentage, nothing to scold you about throughout your entire life.
বেশ
So
স্যার ও লেভেল নিয়ে সে ক্লাস 4 থেকে কথা শুনতেছিলাম আর এখন ও লেভেলই দিতে পারলাম
see, the God always make plans that is beyond our comprehension. Anyway, let's go for this question. Could you so for those who could solve it, the answer came to be A is good. There are two different ways we can solve this problem, and both of the answers should be equally correct. But there is one way we can mess up this answer solution, which I'm going to talk to you about. Never mind. So I'm going to try and solve this problem in two different ways. First way, I'm going to solve it by kinematics, basic force equations, and then I'm going to solve it by energy. Now, we're going to release the whole setup from this position, and this 1 kg object is going to fall by a height of 0.50 meter. As a result, it is going to pull down on the string, and this mass, 2 kg mass, is also going to move to the right. So the first thing I need to understand that the available force when we're going to let go of this setup is going to be exclusively come from the weight of the 1 kg object. এর কোনো force কিন্তু আমাদেরকে motion এ help করতেছে না, because the question already told you that we have a frictionless pulley which passes over a frictionless surface, which means this surface is not neither helping us or nor it is restricting the motion. So whenever we'll release this object, this is going to start coming down, this is going to go forward, and as a result that would essentially mean that they're going to both accelerate at the same rate, which means by the available 9.81 Newton of force, which is the weight of this object, the weight of this object should be what? 9.81 Newton. W goes to mg. By the available 9.81 Newton force, we are going to accelerate a total of 3 kg object. This is going to move downwards, this is going to move to the right. But the total mass that will be dependent on this amount of force for their acceleration is going to be 3 kg, not 1 kg, not 2 kg, a total of 3 kg, because we are considering the string to be of negligible mass. It says light. That light word means that we don't have to bother about the what? The
string.
The mass of the string. So if I go for this calculation, the acceleration of the total system should be given by the resultant force available by the total mass. In this case, the resultant force is coming from the pull of the 1 kg object, 9.81 divided by 3. এখান থেকে তুমি acceleration বের করতে পারবা. Get that value and keep it with multiple decimal places, because this is not the final answer. Then the rest of the part becomes pretty simple. You can, what we're trying to calculate, the final speed, right? Yeah, the initial speed of this object was 0. The final speed as it will hit the floor is, let's say, v. So we can go for v square equals to u square plus twice as. So you're trying to calculate the v. These are question mark. You know the value of u. U equals to how much? 0. You know the a, which we just calculated. S was 0.50 meter. You place everything over here. You get the value of v, which is gonna be 1.81. That's pretty much simple. The point, the location where the kids can make a mistake is to judge that this mass is supposed to be 3. এখানে পর আমাদের ভুল হয়। এই পার্টটা বুঝা গেছে কিনা?
Yes.
এটা হচ্ছে বেসিক কাইনেমেটিক্স দিয়ে যদি করি। আরেকটা উপায় হচ্ছে we can also try to solve this equation by means of energy conversion. How do you go for the energy conversion? As this object is gonna go down, it's gonna lose GP, and both of them objects are gonna start gaining K. Think about it. This is gonna start going down, so this is gonna lose GP. This is not gonna lose GP because it's on the same horizontal plane. As this one is gonna go down, both of them are gonna gain K. So GP loss will happen from the 1 kg object. K gain will be happening for the 3 kg object, because like I said, that this string is gonna be a light thin string. So a 1 kg object at downward velocity at any point of time should be the same as 2 kg object horizontal velocity to the right at the same point of time, which means that they're gonna have the same velocity. Sorry, they're gonna have the same speed, not velocity, because this is a vertically downward motion, this is a horizontal motion, so I cannot say they're gonna have same velocity, but I can say they're gonna always have the same speed at any point of motion. So energy is converting from GP to K. So what I can write by the idea of law of conservation of energy, that delta GP, loss on GP, should be equals to delta K, gain in K. Now comes the equation. GP is lost by 1 kg object only, so this would be 1 into 9.81. I'm getting mgh into 0.50. How much would be the K again for both the objects? That would be half into 3 v square. They forgot the 3 over here. Now you solve this one, you're gonna get the exact same answer. Someone? Help me.
1.808.
So দুইটা যে কোনো একটা মেথড দিয়ে করতে পারবা, কোনো সমস্যা নাই। ইম্পর্টেন্ট বিটটা হচ্ছে that the total force will be accelerating 3 kg mass, or you have to also consider the total kinetic energy will be gained by a total of 3 kg mass. 3 kg massটা হচ্ছে আমাদের total final location to move around or to give kinetic energy to.
ওয়েটের ম্যাগনিটিউড 10 ধরা যাবে না?
এখানে তো বলে নাই। কোশ্চেনে যদি বলে নাই
তো আমরা 9.81 ইনক্লুড।
হ্যাঁ, ফিজিক্সে এএস এ তোমাদের ফিজিক্সে এএস থেকে A2 তে পর্যন্ত 9.81, বাট ম্যাথমেটিক্সে M1 M2 তে ওখানে এখনো 10 ই আছে। This is a problem that CA did not choose to solve. I don't know why.
That's just simply done.
I know, right? 10 হলে সবখানে 10 রাখো, 9.81 হলে সব লেভেলে 9.81 দাও, কিন্তু এ লেভেলসে এসে ম্যাথ হচ্ছে 10 আর এদিকে ফিজিক্সে হচ্ছে 9.81, ম্যাথস খারাপ হয়ে যায়।
স্যার মাঝে মাঝে মার্কস স্কিমে খালি 9.8 লেখা থাকে।
Oh, you can use 9.8 only as well. I prefer to use 9.81 because I always prefer to do a bit. I always prefer to take one more decimal place more to get a more accurate value. That's just my preference, but you can go for 9.8 as well, no problem. বুঝছো?
জি স্যার।
এটা abstract related question.
স্যার আগেরটাতে একটু জান, মানে এমসিকিউ এর যে অ্যানসার গুলোর মধ্যে দেখিনি।
কত নম্বরে
আসছে তো 3.3 আমারটা। আচ্ছা বুঝেছি মনে হয়।
আচ্ছা ক্যালকুলেশন করে দেখো, সমস্যা নাই। Take your time, do the calculation calmly.
স্যার
ও না ঠিক আছে, এ
বলো ইফাত।
47 তে ডিসকাস করব।
47 is very simple. Alignment. Question number is which body cannot be in equilibrium? We do not have the magnitude of the forces. The question doesn't also say that forces are drawn in terms of their magnitude, or the length of the forces are proportional to their magnitude. So the only thing that you can check is whether they pass through the single point or not. Just by looking at all this figure, all of these figures, this one for this question, 3 forces do pass through their single point. This is that point. So the resultant moment can be 0. So this can be in equilibrium. This one, well, extend these lines and check this out. So I'm gonna extend this line, I should choose a thinner line, and I can try to extend this line. So you just essentially have to draw it on your question paper and check out the answer, check out the possibilities for this one. So they also go through the same point. Works. If you do this thing over here, so essentially I cannot, from the information that I have available from in the question, I cannot check whether it is or these forces will produce an equilibrium of force. But using the alignment information, I can check whether this forces will produce equilibrium of moment. That I can check. So for all of these three forces, they are going to the same point, but for this will not be happening for this question, for this option actually. So let's try to do this. This is the element of the horizontal force. This is the element of the vertical force. This is the element of the, sorry. You see, these three forces do not cross at a single point. You get a triangle over here. This will never be in equilibrium. Right. A is your only choice. বুঝে গেছে?
Yes, sir.
So that is the endpoint question of our 3.2. So we have, I think, 2 more segments over here, 3.2, 3.3 and 3.4. Did we do 3.4? I think we did do 3.4, which was this thing. Sorry, nah. This was the endpoint of 3.1. What? So তোমাদের 3.3 টা আমি আগে করাই ফেলছি. That was the first segment that I did. So next class I'm gonna first discuss the problem which I skipped in this segment regarding the upthrust. Your homework is to see the video from the class 9 playlist to get the full idea of the upthrust thing. That is your homework. And then I'm going to discuss these upthrust questions, and then I'm going to start 3.2. If you can finish 3.2, I'm going to go to the paper 2 solution.
Sir, class 9 এর কোন video?
Class 9 এর এই ভিডিওটা, you'll go to the how you're going to navigate. You go to my channel. So you know where my channel is, and then you go to my channel, go to the playlist tab, and then press the CA class 9 playlist. In this playlist, I'm starting a recording over here since I have already started talking about this stuff. So first thing was about the internet connection. Have a good internet connection. If you're using a landline, is good. If you're using a Wi-Fi connection, see class 9 lecture 7, upthrust, equilibrium, and Galileo experiment. This is a 1.5 hour lecture. You might as well choose to see all of them. To be honest, in all of these lectures, I've discussed a lot of idea about kinematics. If you have time, you can look at all of them to get a quite better understanding of the physics. If you feel you can manage time. These are all public videos, accessible at any time. বুঝে গেছে?
Yes, sir.
Kids, thank you very much. Good night. Goodbye.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.